Best of r/entitled parents episode 88. Subscribe for edit videos daily. Hey, it's me, the Chick-fil-A guy from the other day. I'm gonna be going on a class trip in a few days, so I thought I'd give you all one more story before I head out. I'll pop a link to the other post in the comments if you want to read it. Usual abbreviations apply. OP, AII it's your boy, G1, Guy 1, G2, Guy 2, EM. 1 guess who this is? K1, EM's son, K2, EM's daughter. Anyway, this happened a few weeks back, after I got off the recovery for my surgery and came back to work. I was working a 4-9:30 shift on a Friday in dining room, which meant I got a half-hour break since I was working 5.5 hours, which is company policy. So I took my break around 7:15 or so, because it was really slow that night, especially for a Friday. There was 4 or 5 tables occupied, but I wasn't the only one in dining room that night, so I was good to go on break. I ordered my employee meal and got my phone and wallet from the little employee cubbies we have up front and sat down in the back, near the bathrooms. Some people in front of house were cleaning the floors on the other side, near the playground, so I wanted to stay out of their way. As a result, all the other groups of people were on that side as well. I took a free table and just texted for a little while as my food came out. While this was going on, 2 guys about my age, maybe a little older, walked in and ordered before sitting down a few tables away from me, 1 table away from the EM. I didn't think much of it until I saw the 2 guys walk by me holding hands. Now, if you read my last post you probably noted the part where I said that I was B. So seeing those guys go and sit down made me smile. I guess to me it was nice to see that everyone's got someone out there for them, and these guys had found that someone. Anyway, my order came out and I had skipped lunch that day, so I started devouring that sandwich and parfait. While I was picking one of the tomatoes out of my sandwich, I heard a little bit of an argument break out behind me. EM had noticed the boys holding hands and had gone over to their table. I didn't look over, but I kinda tuned into the conversation, mostly because I was curious. EM, excuse me, can you not hold hands please? It's making my daughter uncomfortable. G1, and why is that? EM, because you're both males. G2, you've got a smart daughter. Ha. Cute childish internal laughing from OP. EM, pardon me? G2, lady, G1, and I come in here pretty often and they never have a problem with us. Leave us alone if you don't want to deal with us. EM sounded pretty ticked off about that. She stated to yell at the 2 guys, who looked pretty uncomfortable. She went on for a minute or TW about how homosexuality is a sin and I don't want my children exposed to your disease. I didn't really want this lady to cause a scene and I'm not really comfortable in a homophobic environment myself, so I stood up, put my name tag back on and walked over to G1 and G2's table. OP, is there a problem here? EM, it's none of your business. OP, actually, you're in my place of employment and you're causing a scene, so it is my business, mom. EM, don't talk back to me. Isn't this supposed to be a Christian restaurant? Why aren't you throwing those 2 out? OP, because they ordered food and they're our valued guests. Miss, I'm going to have to ask you to please go back to your seat and stop disturbing these gentlemen. G1 and G2 seemed pretty happy someone had taken their side. EM was not, but gave me a scowl and went back to her seat. I smiled at G1 and G2, gave a little pleasure to be of help nod, and went back and finished my meal right as theirs came out. Some time passed, and I was back on the clock. Both EM and G1 and G2 were still there. G1 and G2 were still eating and K1 and K2 were in the play area. EM was still at her table. Now, part of my job in dining room is doing table touches, which just means checking in with all the guests and asking them if they need anything. I checked with a few other tables who were all good. EM asked me for a sweet tea refill, which I got for her, and G1 unknowingly made my day by asking for some pepper for his mac and cheese. I went and got the giant, functional pepper shaker that we have, walked over and said say when. G1 and G2 laughed their asses off at this, and so did a couple of older folks at another table. It put me in a really good mood, so when G2 asked if it was alright if he could take some sauces home, I decided to be nice and surprise these guys. I figured what the hell, these guys are nice, They got yelled at by a crazy lady and they made my day, might as well make theirs in return. So I went to the counter and asked a friend in the kitchen if he could get a couple cookies ready for me real quick, and he did since he wasn't planning to use his employee meal that night anyway. I put the sauces in a paper takeout bag with the cookies and took it out to their table, where we had the obligatory "thanks a lot man, my pleasure" interaction. I walked away after that to wipe tables, but kept an eye on their faces while they opened the bag. I don't know if they know it was me or not, but they looked really happy and it felt good. G1 and G2 left at that point, so I told them to have a good night as I passed by them to clean their table off. They told me good night and went off and hopefully did have a very good night. As I was cleaning the table, EM came over to me and tapped my arm. I looked over, finished wiping the table and stood up. "OP, do you need any help?" EM: "Yes, I'd like you to get me 3 cookies please." OP: "Oh, sorry mom. We can't do transactions here in the dining room. You'll have to either wait in line or place a mobile order." EM cut me off before I could finish the word order. EM: "Well, you brought cookies to those two, so why not me?" OP: "Those cookies were paid for, mom." EM: "Then pay for mine the same way." At this point K1 and K2 came running back from the play area and started begging their mother for dessert. EM: "See? Are you really going to say no to my children?" OP: "No, mom. I'm going to say no to you." At this point I picked up the bucket of sanitizer wipes I was using. "If you want a cookie then you can buy them yourself. Is there anything else I can help you with?" EM started hollering at me and about how I was a disgraceful employee and I should be fired for what poor service I had given her. At this point I was saved by the most unlikeliest of heroes. The old dude from earlier who had laughed at the pepper shaker walked by and told the EM to, and I quote, "shove a sock in it so far deep that it covers the pole in your ass." He then told me I was doing a good job, got a few napkins and went back to his seat with his wife. It took everything I had to not start laughing my ass off, but I managed to squeeze out a "thank you," said to the older guy and a "have a good night, mom" to the EM before going back to the kitchen and laughing for a solid 30 seconds. That's pretty much the end of the story. EM wound up buying a 6-pack of cookies anyway. I made sure the older guy had everything he needed for the rest of the evening, and I felt good about myself for the rest of the night. And I feel like I'll be posting a lot of stuff here, since I've been working at Chick-fil-A for a while. So I just want to say, most nights, you won't see a single Karen and the worst incident will be a messed up order. CFA is an amazing job and I'm grateful to have it, so please don't translate these stories as me disliking my work, because overall I love it. Thank you. Next. Obligatory. English isn't my first language. I'm on mobile. Cast. OP. Me. Myself and I. EM. Entitled mother. EK. Entitled kid. My mother. On to the story. So, I live in a good sized house, and one day had EM coming over. We knew that EM had a 5-year-old kid, so we kept some of my toys out. At 6 p.m., they come over and EM immediately says EK needs something to do. We showed her to the toy room, and then I left EK there. EK started playing with the toys. EK got bored and came to our lounge, where all of us were. He saw our showpiece swing in the corner, then ran to sit on it. I told EM that the swing was just a showpiece, but she insisted. I thought that meant their fault if anything happens. From there, I went to my room to study, and after 30 seconds I hear a creak and then a crash. I rush to the lounge and what do you know? EK has fallen down, pieces of wood are everywhere, and EK has a bit of wood stuck in his butt. EK, crying I want my mommy. EM, what the hell did you do to my beloved child? Well, OP told you not to let EK sit on the showpiece. EM, I don't care. Now he needs to go to hospital and it's all your fault. You should have listened to OP. EM, we are never coming back to your house. I will sue you for hurting my child. OP, quietly F off. EM left with EK, and we never saw her again. Thank you. Next. Intro. So this happened 2 years ago and I still find this funny. It was 2017 November and that is during F1 in Abu Dhabi. Me and my friends went to watch practice 1 and 2. But there was a 2.5 hour gap between those two sessions. So me and my friends decided let's have some fun on the go-karting track. We have a little bit of experience of go-karting, so we were put in the 7-Eleven, because we were 11, age group, and we were at the back of the starting grid. We were pretty good and we all were ahead by the second lap. I finished second and my other friend won the race and the other one finished third. We got out of the carts and this kid that was 8 started complaining why we finished 10 seconds ahead. The dialogue goes like this. Me, I wonder who? Friend 1, friend 1, friend 2, friend 2 EM, obviously entitled Mom Kevin, you know why? My dad, nice person. Kevin, Mom, here are these 3, going way too fast and not giving us a chance to win. EM, let me see. EM to me, so you 3 won the race and not gave my kid a chance to win? Me, it's racing, it's not giving chances. EM, how dare you talk back to me, disrespectful child. Friend 1, he didn't talk back, he just told the basic rule of racing. Friend 2, exactly, it's racing, if you want a chance then go to bumper cars at the mall. EM, you are so unbelievably rude. Me, Mom, it's just Rassy gets cut off by EM. EM, I demand a refund for making my son lose a race. Me, no, he should have been better at racing, it's not our fault. EM, I will call the cops for you idiots wasting my money. Me, friend 1 and friend 2, start laughing because of idiotic logic. EM, what's funny, you will be talking to the cops soon. Me, just basic rules of racing, if your child is not good it's not our fault. EM, give me 75 dirhams otherwise I call the police. My dad, Mom, I think you must leave these boys alone as they did nothing wrong. They just have experience with go-karting. Take your son and train him if you feel like. EM gets pissed off and leaves with her child. Later on we dropped off my friends and in the car all we could talk about was the stupidity of that woman. Ah, what a day that was. I struck gold with that EM. No offense to anyone named Kevin in the replies section. Thank you. Next. So the following story is fairly fresh, for it happened only a few hours ago. I was sitting at the doctor's office with a cold and a hammering headache. I just filled out a form to make sure I'm not infected with a life-threatening virus and I felt the essence of life leaving my body. To sum it up, I was sick. Along with me in the waiting room were several people, none of which hold any importance to this story. None, except for Karen K. and her brat, B. I saw them or rather heard them as soon as I entered the doctor's office. 4B was playing on her iPad with the volume turned up high, demanding her mother to help her dress the dolly. K was on her phone not helping her daughter dress the dolly. I had a book with me, a children's book which I had to read for an assignment in school. But I did not read it, my brain was mushy and I felt too sick for reading it right at that moment. So we sat there for a while, K scrolling her phone, B loudly playing dress up, commenting on everything she sees, and me with my book on my lap trying not to die right away. B got bored, threw the iPad into her handbag, she was like 7 or 8 and had a fucking leather handbag, and started to demand her mother's attention. K was calm and asked her what she wanted to do. Watch Netflix, but not the stuff she had downloaded. She started to whine when K offered her to read a book. The waiting room has a ton on children's books. B looked at her in terror. No, only if K read to her. K didn't want to do that and started to scan the room. You know what comes next? She demanded Me to read to her kid. I was straddled as anyone would be. I wasn't expecting to be addressed by anyone but the nurse, but she spoke directly to me telling me, not even asking, telling me, to read to B. I laughed it off and said number. She pointed out that I already had a book with me and that I should read it to her kid. I declined again, still a bit confused. Even B said she doesn't want a stranger to read to her, but K already started ranting on how dumb it is for me to read a children's book by myself and that they are designed to be read to children. I told her that I don't want to read to her daughter, that she could choose a book from the shelf and read to her herself. I looked around for help but either people ignored us or looked at me with a sorry look on their faces. K kept on ranting, calling me dumb and selfish, and childish and something about a parenting lesson for me. IDK couldn't really process what was being said until she was interrupted by the nurse who called her and up. They studied out of the room and left me completely confused and with an even bigger headache than the one I had before. As a babysitter I worked for quite a few parents I would consider entitled. But this mom, that was a different experience. Sorry for my English being a little wonky. I'm a sick non-native speaker who's still confused. Thank you. Next. Okay, so this story happened something like 20 years ago, so my memory of the exact details are somewhat hazy. My mother has multiple sclerosis, and over the almost 30 years since she was diagnosed, it has taken her ability to walk. Today, she needs a wheelchair just to get around the house, and sometimes has trouble transferring from the wheelchair to her armchair or bed. But this event took place back when she could still get by with a wheeled walking frame over short distances, and only needed a wheelchair if it involved extended distances. Such as, for instance, doing the weekly shop at the local supermarket. I can't remember exactly how old I was when this happened, but it must have been before I got my driving license, as I was sitting in the passenger seat when this happened. I was going shopping with my mum, so I could push the trolley and do any heavy lifting, while she got around in her wheelchair. We arrived at the supermarket, and only the very last disabled parking bay was free. Not a problem, as we only needed one. The car park was very clearly laid out and marked as being one way, meaning that you were expected to go the long way round if you missed a bay, which is why we were surprised when we encountered a car coming the other way, trying to get into the same parking space. Cue classic 2 cars, 1 space scene. We've all been there. Windows are rolled down so my mother and the other driver can discuss what's happening. I will be paraphrasing due to not remembering the exact wording. EP, that's my space. Mum, you came the wrong way. EP, I know, but I need that space for my daughter. I look over, and there's a baby seat in the back of the other car. Mum, is your daughter disabled? EP, number. Mum, then you need to use the parent and child bays. The supermarket had more parent and child bays than it did disabled bays. They were just a little further from the doors. EP, those are too far to walk with my child. Mum, well, at least you can walk. This line I remember perfectly. Now, my mother has never been one to use her disability as an excuse. Even today, she tries to do as much as she possibly can for herself, but she is not one to stand by and let people sideline or take advantage of her because of it. EP turns a truly wonderful shade of green, my mother's words having cut through her defenses and scored a critical hit. She backs up and makes her way over to the parent and child bays, allowing us to park in peace. While we were in the supermarket, I happened to catch a glimpses of EP as she pushed her daughter around in a trolley. She saw my mum, in her wheelchair, and did a quick 180 and walked off, appropriately ashamed of her previous actions. I like to think that maybe we stopped her from turning into a full Karen that day. Thank you. Next. This is pretty embarrassing, but I figured that I would finally get some advice. Until I was 13, I wore a Cariva Combi Kit car seat. It had straps over my shoulders, and connected to a pelvic area belt with a crotch strap. But, I would unlock myself out of the best by undoing the crotch strap and then the shoulder straps and my mom would be pissed. So, my mom got me a new car seat harness. I wore an EZ-on car seat harness vest every time in the car, with a crotch strap. I even wore upper and lower arm restraints. But, my little sister would always unbuckle the back so I could get out. The arm restraints didn't work because of this reason. Finally, now, I wear a Houdini 31 harness. I think it's really dumb and overkill, especially considering I'm 16. But she says it's for my safety. I can't even escape out of the Houdini 31. Am I right that it's kind of overkill for my safety? Does anyone have any experience with a parent like mine? Every morning and afternoon at school my mom has to strap me and unstrap me from my harness. It's super embarrassing. What do I do? I can't escape. Thank you. Next. Sorry for any formatting. I'm on mobile. This happened October 2019. Context. I'm a preschool teacher's aide and assistant. While conferences are going on, I could hear every word being said, because the walls are paper thin, specifically so we can yell and others can hear us if there are any problems. Cast, ED equals entitled dad, CM equals confused mom, IK equals innocent kid, T equals teacher. IK was a very sweet little boy, only 3 years old in a class of mostly 4-5-year-olds. He never had a problem, until October started. IK started talking about very inappropriate things, but it seems as if he didn't fully understand what he was saying. He would talk about murder, monsters, blood, guns, etc. T and I finally got him to tell us where he's been hearing all of these things, and he says his dad plays movies at night. I asked him how he saw these movies, and he says his dad sleeps in the same bed as him, so when he watches movies at night, IK can see them. I asked IK if he likes these movies. He says it scares him. I told him next time his dad watches a movie, to close his eyes and try not to watch. A couple days later, I talked to IK again. The dad still plays the movies, and IK is barely getting any sleep because he's been getting nightmares. We let him sleep for up to 3 hours when nap time is usually 1 hour just because he is so exhausted. IK's grandpa usually picks him up from school, because CM works evenings and nights, and ED works mornings and afternoons. IK's grandpa decorated his house for Halloween, and now IK is terrified to be over there, because I know where everyone lives, very small town. I drove past IK's house and IK's grandpa's house, just to see what the deal was. They were not decorated in a family-friendly way at all. There were scenes of murder staged out with dolls, all covered in horrific amounts of blood. I've been through and seen a lot of stuff in my life, and even I was concerned. Thankfully, conferences are coming up, and ED will have to attend those. T has already placed several calls to ED and CM with no answer. We have also called CPS because it was bordering on abuse and wanted to start documenting what IK said every time. During conferences, I was cleaning in the room next door, which is why the conversation doesn't include me. After the normal part of the conference, technical performance, ability to write his name, etc., T gets to the serious stuff. IK has been telling me about some bad dreams he's been having, and he's been sleeping extra long hours during nap time, and some days we don't have the ability to even wake him up because he is so physically exhausted. IK stated that ED watches scary movies when he tries to fall asleep. ED, that's true. T, okay. Well, when they're so young, those kind of movies can make a really bad impact on them. He says almost every day how terrified he is. ED, my son is not a pussy. He can watch movies. He knows they're not real. T, you may get that impression, but he's very young. At 3 years old, it is very difficult to understand what is reality and what is not, especially when these types of movies are shown to him every night. CM, you watch them with him every night? ED, of course, it's Halloween. We are just getting into the spirit. CM, I'm sorry, I didn't know this. T, I understand. I am just concerned for IK. The type of behavior he has been exhibiting has been extremely violent. ED, scoffs, I know my kid better than you, lady. T, I understand that, but I've gone through a lot of training and ED, I don't care about your training. You're telling me how to raise my child when I clearly know better than you. He's not a baby, he can watch a scary movie. T, sir, there are ratings on movies for a reason. Movies rated R or even PG-13 should not be viewed by toddlers. ED, fuck you lady, IK loves the movies. He's not scared. Just because you have a fancy degree doesn't mean you know shit. ED proceeded to storm out. I don't want to get much more into what happened because I'm not sure the legality of me talking about an open CPS case, but know that the child is getting help and he is doing much better now that Halloween is over. TLDR. ED shows 3-year-old horror movies then yells at the teacher that he knows better than her and that his son isn't a pussy.